Hey, how y'all doing? We're doing production planning, HL only. That stands for higher level. And there's two parts to this lecture. Part one is the textbook, with my insights and added comments to help guide you through the reading. And the second part, not included in this lecture, is going to be me working the stock keeping problems. So we are going to start off with the supply chain process. Give you a little bit of overview here. We're going to talk about just-in-time and just-in-case inventory. We're going to show you a stock control chart that you're going to have to. Well, one of the assignments in this unit is for you to do a stock control chart. It may be your quantitative option on the exam. You should hope it's your quantitative option on the exam, because this is paper 2, because it's a real straightforward calculation and a very easy chart to draw. We're also going to deal with a little bit of math, the last math of the entire course, called utilization rates, both capacity and production and labor productivity. By the way, those formulas will all be given to you on the exam, on the formula sheet, and then there's a little bit of math to do on cost to buy versus cost to make. Really simple, straightforward calculations. And then that is it for the math for IB Business Management. All right, supply chain process. If you're in class, or I think I mentioned this in one of the earlier lectures in the unit, probably 5.1, that your way to fame and fortune, your way to fortune, not necessarily fame, is to become a supply chain expert, which is how do you get the raw materials from supplier to manufacturing to distribution to customer to consumer, the final consumer of that particular product. Where do you find the suppliers? Where do you find the manufacturing? How do you ship it? How do you put it in retail stores, sell it online, etc., and get it to the consumer? Supply chain people are the unsung heroes of most of the products that you use and enjoy. Tim Cook, the CEO of Apple, Steve Jobs did not pick a marketing person or a computer programmer or a user experience programmer or designer to be his successor. He chose Tim Cook. Tim Cook is a supply chain guy. And yes, Apple does unbelievable marketing, but without supply chain management, getting all the literally millions of parts together they have to get together, manufacture them, ship them, get them to the consumers, they wouldn't be a success. They wouldn't have the stock prices and profitability they have now. I think that is all on Tim Cook's shoulders. So not flashy, not the big presenter like Jobs was, but definitely the person behind Apple's success. All right. So when we say logistics, the term logistics, and there's like a whole study in commerce of logistics. Logistics is how the supply chain is constructed, how the supply chain is managed, how the supply chain, how do you deal with problems in the supply chain? Especially if those products are coming from overseas. It sounds simple, but really it's really fairly complicated when you have multiple suppliers that you depend on to get those products to your manufacturer, then to get them manufactured on time, to get them to the final consumer. I know they just announced the iPhone 12, but iPhone 12s are being manufactured months ago. in order for you to be able to pre-order and to get your phone. So you got to understand how important supply chain management is. So let's talk about two different aspects of this whole supply chain issue. And what I'm going to use for this is I'll probably use automobile manufacturing as the example. So understanding these two terms and the differences in these two terms is very important for this course. So term number one, just in case. And this is all about having the stuff there ready to manufacture. In fact, let's not do automobiles. Let's do something that we all know and love, the Abbey Grind. Remember, folks, the Abbey Grind, the whole idea came from an IB student, Gabe McGregor. Hats off to Gabe McGregor, class of 2016? Yeah, class of 2016, along with another famous grad, Chase Claypool. I know Chase Claypool is a multi-million-dollar football player now, but Gabe McGregor, who is on our provincial runner-up girls basketball team, helped give us the Abbey Grind. She's the one that did the IA on the Abbey Grind that got Mr. Como thinking about the Abbey Grind. So we're going to use the Abbey Grind for our examples here. Just in case, traditional method of stock control, which means holding reserve of both raw materials and finished products in case of a sudden increase in demand. So for the Abbey Grind, if we were doing just in case inventory, we would, have extra bags of coffee, extra cartons of milk. We might make a bunch of extra coffees and pastries in the morning, just in case there was an increase in demand that day. Or there was some sort of problem in the supply chain. For instance, we could not get our coffee delivered, or we couldn't get the chef to prepare the cookies or pastries of that particular day. Just in time is modern method of stock control. So through our supply chain savvy, our supply chain knowledge, our supply chain genius, we're going to manage to get the things that we need just in time so we don't have to hold any inventory, so we don't have to have pastries go bad, coffee beans that get thrown out, milk that goes sour. We're going to have such good data on what the demand is. And if anyone is interested in doing any sort of IA based on the Abbey Grind, and we can have multiple people do different aspects of the Abbey Grind for their IA, I have a lot of data on the Abbey Grind. I have every day's sales from the time it started based on the drink. So I know how many Cafe Americanos, lattes, brewed coffee, iced caramel macchiatos were sold on any given day. So with that knowledge, I should be able to really predict the demand for particular products on certain days and have just the inventory I need so I don't have wastage in coffee, milk, pastries. And I also don't have wastage in terms of I don't have the product for the people. So, main difference between just in time and just in case. And if you're only going to remember one of these, remember just in time. Okay, so stock is brought in from suppliers only as required, is beneficial for working capital. That means we don't have to have a lot of our everyday pocket cash that we need to run the business tied up in inventory. And remember, cash is everything. Cash is the blood of the business. Reduces costs. We don't have wastage. We don't have storage costs. we don't have stock that can't be sold. Not necessarily for the Abbey grind, but think about a retail store or a clothing store, stock that goes out of style. It means that the chance of damaged or ruined stock is low. We have a power outage and all the milk goes bad. We have more space to do other things. So instead of having that, if you look at the grind, we have that big refrigerator back there. Let's say we were able to be so precise we could have a much smaller refrigerator. Well, we could use another bit of that space for maybe a second espresso machine or maybe our own little cooking area back there to make paninis or some sort of hot beverage of some type, or maybe frozen beverage. Who knows? It could be used for production as opposed to storage, and creates a closer relationship with suppliers. So, we have to have open and good communication with our suppliers because we need to have a strong relationship to guarantee our deliveries. So just in case, so here's the differences. So we store stock. Sometimes it's kept back from daily use in case we need it. It says it reduces pressure on cash flow. Yeah, because we don't have to be paying our suppliers every single day. While just in time is beneficial for our working capital, if we've paid out all of our suppliers for a month ahead of time, we don't have to worry about having cash every single day. I'd argue that the working capital advantage is bigger, though. When we can buy in bulk, it reduces costs. So if I want to go and talk to Smoking Gun Coffee Beans and they want to sell us 5 pounds, for $12 a pound, and I say, you know what, I'd like 100 pounds. I bet you I'm getting that for $10, $8, $7 a pound. But then again, I got to store it. I'm going to have something that goes bad. We have a massive demand one day due to some sort of, and not now during what's going on in the world, but, a tour bus comes through and for some reason breaks down and all the people need a coffee and we're going to provide them with coffee. Well, we have a massive change in demand. We can take care of that. And again, you may argue, how often do those types of things happen? If you're not paying attention to your demand and tracking it, you should be. That's the whole point behind just in time, though. Has spare parts. Well, what about spare parts? Well, let's say we kept a couple of extra coffee machines around too. Let's say we sold coffee machine. We sold coffee beans on the side. You could buy coffee, which I think you can. Can't you? Can you buy special Abbey grind coffee? You could last year. So you could take some of those spare parts, those bags of coffee beans that are for retail, we could use them if we needed to. So we don't have to have delivery. Stock is already stored, ready to use, and suppliers won't charge a premium price for delivery or because they're delivering small quantities. Okay, so that's really the big difference. That's really the whole point of what's going on here with the stock control, just in time, just in case. Okay, I want to look at this graph here. So now you won't have to ever reproduce this graph, but it's just good for conceptual understanding. Got a line here, which is our total cost of stock. So again, it would make sense due to the economies of scale, that the more you have, the lower your total cost per unit is going to be. If you ran out of stock and you couldn't sell the product, we would have a cost to that too, and that's being tracked. And then there's also a cost of holding stock. So the more stock you hold, the more storage space you're going to have, the more wastage you're going to have. So why the cost of stock out is going down means that as we hold stock, we don't have to worry about not having the product for the customer. So in a sense, being able to supply the customer's needs easily is reducing our costs. So while we are able to do that with more capacity and with more stock, there comes a point where the cost of holding it offsets the cost of losing sales because of stock out. I hope that makes sense. At that point is where we probably want to operate in terms of when we're going to reorder things. So yeah, we could hold tons of stock, but that cost is the cost of holding that stock is going to go way up. It does not offset the fact that we'd have to turn people away. All right, some concepts and terms that I think I'd like to just skim over here because we're going to go over it in the next video when I do the example problems. So, your initial order is how much you're going to order at the start of the year, how much coffee Nancy's going to get in September to start up the Abbey Grind. The usage pattern, we're going to know how much is being used. We have good data to know exactly how much coffee is going to be used. I can tell you right now, it's about 2 kilos a day last year. Did I say 2 kilos? 2 pounds. 2 pounds of coffee a day. So about a kilo a day. How much could we actually have down there stored? And we'll just talk about coffee beans. What's the maximum stock level? We end up generally having space for probably 4 bags with, I think they were 5-pound bags. And then what's the minimum stock we want? When she got down to 1 bag of stock, then we needed to reorder. So 1 5-pound bag, it was time to reorder because the coffee was brought in from Langley. Reorder level. So the level at which you're going to make the order for. So let's just say minimum stock level would be like 1 day's worth of coffee, because it was always a 2-day order from the time she contacted the company. In fact, I'm lying again. I think it was brought in every week, but it could be as quick as 2 days. Could be as quick as 1 day. It could be as quick as 2 hours if we had to go to Costco. And then how much we're going to order at any one time. So if we do, 2 pounds a day, 5-pound bags, over 5 days, we're going to do 10 pounds. So we're going to order 2 bags a week. And lead time, how much it takes to get how long it takes, and how much we're going to be using while that order comes in. And that's what we'll be going over. So this is an example graph. This is exactly what you need to reproduce on the exam if they ask a problem like this and you decide to answer it. Okay, let's talk about some of the soft topics here as opposed to the calculation. So optimal stock levels. Is the market growing? Well, if it's growing, and for instance, when we just started the Abbey Grind, which was right before Snowball 2019, we only were going through maybe 0.5 pound a day, but we saw the fact that tournament was coming up, so we are going to hold more stock. Also, what type of product is it? Is it cheap, single-use, fast-moving, high-volume product? Or is it complex? Does it depend on many suppliers? If it depends on many suppliers and it's complex and expensive, we're probably going to hold a little bit more stock. If it's perishable, we don't want a lot of stock if it's perishable. Infrastructure. Do the deliveries happen on time like clockwork, or is it a little, we didn't make it today, we'll make it tomorrow? Or is just the infrastructure so bad that they can't make it there regularly? Do you have the money to pay your suppliers at the right time? Do they give you credit? If you get huge savings from buying in bulk, maybe it's better to buy in bulk. Have a little bit of wastage. Do you have people that can stock? Do you have people available that can constantly be stocking shelves? All considerations. Okay, finishing up with some more calculations, our final calculations. So these will be given to you on the exam, on the formula sheet. Capacity utilization rate. So this is at what percent is the capacity being utilized? So Abbey grind. Yes, once again, it's the Abbey grind. So we have a double group head espresso machine. So that means we could be making 2 espressos at once. There's dual boilers in each group head. So we can have very fast turnaround in terms of heating the water up and producing a second shot. So we have, a certain productive capacity per hour for making espresso drinks. What's our actual output per hour versus our productive capacity? If our productive capacity is 100 drinks per hour and our actual output is 25, then we have 25% capacity utilization rate. That gives us lots of room to grow, but maybe we bought too sophisticated of a machine. Those are some of the decisions you can make if you have this number. But if you think you're going to grow, then you need to provide room for that growth. Because once you hit 100%, you can't utilize your capacity any further to grow your business. What's the productivity rate? So what's our total input versus our total output? Do we have any wasted shots when we make espresso down there? Do we have any bad shots we're going to throw out? We have to calibrate the machine each day. That takes a couple of shots. So, are we only producing at 50%, 80%, 90%? When they first started making LCD TVs, because I don't know if you probably were pretty young when they first came out. Like, I think my father-in-law paid $5,500 for a 46-inch Sony LCD TV. And I just paid like $400 for one. I think when he got his new one, he got a 65-inch for $600. Well, that has to do with the productivity rate. When they made LCD TVs at first, they had such bad production. Because they did not have the expertise to make these screens, they threw out a vast majority of the screens. They would come off the line, they would be tested bad, throw them to the side, make another one. And so their output was probably only 20-30% of the screens were good. So they had to charge for that. Now I think they're probably like 95-98% of the screens that come off the assembly line all work and are fine. They used to have these things called dead pixels, where a pixel on your screen would be stuck red or stuck green or stuck blue. And at that time when you bought an LCD TV, if you had a problem with a stuck pixel, they counted them on the screen, and you could have like up to 20 stuck pixels. And if you had more than that, they'd replace the screen. If you had less than that, just learn to ignore it. Okay, so that's productivity rate. We'll also have another calculation here called labor productivity rate. So it's how many labor hours you put in and what the productivity rate of labor. So either number of workers or number of hours. Finally, cost to make versus cost to buy. Cost to buy, simply the number of products you're going to buy. I'm sorry, the number of products. You have the quantity, the number of products, Q, times the price, P. So our bags of coffee, I think we spend, I think it's about $6 a pound times 5 pounds is $30 total. cost to make, variable cost times the quantity. So Olivia from our class last year, probably don't know Olivia. You might know Olivia. She did hers on whether the Abbey grind should roast its own coffee or buy the coffee. So the variable cost of buying the coffee was about $3 or $4 a pound, plus we had the electricity, plus we had the wastage of some bad roasts. So her calculation was it was just about equal. Variable cost times quantity. So since it was equal, it was easier to buy. And there's other factors in there as well, but that's the calculation. All right. We're down to revision checklist. Second video will be us doing the problems together. And I'll do those, draw them out on my iPad. I know you have the problems and the solutions, but I think it's better if I actually go through them and write them out. It's better to learn that way. If you want to try them ahead of time, that's great. Other than that, wow, we are down to the last two really short units of IB business, and we will get those out to you quickly, and we can put a big old period at the end of this course, put a fork in it, because it's going to be done. That's IA and review time. All right, guys, it's been a slice. Talk to you later.